There is a private kind of exhaustion that no one sees. Not the exhaustion of hard work, not the clean fatigue that comes from effort. I mean the kind that comes from being emotionally yanked around by everything, by messages that do not come, by words you replay, by disrespect you cannot forget, by the success of people you do not even admire, by the feeling that your peace can be stolen by a look, a delay, a memory, a screen. And if we are honest, what hurts most is not that the world is unstable, it is that you are. That is the wound. Not weakness in public, instability in private. And if that wound is not faced, you do not just suffer from life. You become available to everything that can disturb you. Emotional detachment is not about becoming cold. It is about becoming difficult to shake, difficult to bait, difficult to own. And most people will never understand how badly they need that until life humiliates them into clarity. What is really happening is deeper than stress, deeper than overthinking, deeper than being too sensitive. Most people are not tired because life is too heavy. They are tired because their inner world has no border. Everything gets in. Every opinion gets a seat. Every slight gets a chamber. Every fear gets a microphone. Every impulse gets a vote. So they wake up already invaded. They call it anxiety, but often it is ungoverned attention. They call it passion, but often it is emotional dependence. They call it honesty, but often it is compulsion without discipline. A man says he is angry because people keep disrespecting him, but if you watch closely, the anger is not only about disrespect, it is also about his need to control how he is seen. His ego bleeds, then calls the bleeding principle. A woman says she cannot move on because she loved deeply. Sometimes that is true, but sometimes what she cannot move on from is not love. It is rejection. It is the fracture in identity. It is the mind begging reality to reverse itself because reality injured her pride. A person says they are lost, but they are not lost in the grand dramatic sense. They are scattered, fragmented by too much stimulation, too many voices, too little silence. Their mind has become a crowded room where nothing finishes and nothing settles, and modern life is built to keep it that way. Your attention is tracked, your insecurity is monetized, your nervous system is provoked for profit. Outrage travels faster than peace. Comparison is available on command. Desire is manufactured all day long. The phone in your hand is not just a tool. In undisciplined hands, it becomes a delivery system for emotional instability. So when you say you want peace, be careful. Because peace is not something given to you by circumstances. Peace is what remains when you stop letting circumstances govern your inner life. That is why so many people feel exhausted after doing almost nothing. Their body sat still, but their soul kept flinching. They spent the day reacting to headlines, to text messages, to imagined conversations, to old wounds, to possible futures, to people who are not even in the room. This is the hidden poverty of the age, not lack of information, but lack of inner command. And until that is named clearly, the struggle stays vague. You think your problem is your boss, your ex, your loneliness, your low mood, your motivation. Sometimes those are real pressures, but beneath them there is usually a more dangerous issue. You have not learned how to stand guard at the gate of your own mind. The Stoics enter here like a blade, not to comfort you first, to interrupt you. Epictetus said that people are disturbed not by things, but by the views they take of them. That line survives because it wounds the ego in the right place. It refuses your favorite excuse. It does not say, the world is painless. It says your interpretation is more powerful than you admit. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, not to perform wisdom, but to survive power, betrayal, grief, illness, and pressure without surrendering his judgment. He kept returning to the same brutal discipline. This thing outside you has no authority over your character unless you hand it authority. Seneca went further. He understood that suffering is multiplied by imagination, by anticipation, by indulgence in emotional theater. We are often more crushed by our stories than by the event itself. Now hear that clearly. The Stoic interruption is not this shallow slogan that nothing matters. It is far harder than that. It is the demand to separate event from interpretation, stimulus from surrender, pain from performance. Stoicism does not ask you to feel less because feelings are weak. It asks you to see clearly because confusion makes you weak. That is the difference. The modern mind says, I feel it strongly, therefore it must be true. The Stoic says, I feel it strongly, therefore I must examine it before I obey it. That is law number 1. Do not trust the first emotional verdict. Your first reaction is often ancient, conditioned, insecure, defensive, hungry for certainty, and desperate to preserve ego. It is not always wisdom. Sometimes it is just habit wearing conviction like a mask. This is why emotional detachment matters, not because life should not touch you, but because life touches you. And if you do not know how to govern what rises in you, you will be ruled by everything beneath you. And from here, the real trial begins. Because self-betrayal does not always look dramatic. Most of the time it looks normal. It looks like what everybody else is doing. The first form of self-betrayal is betrayal through distraction. This one is easy to underestimate because it rarely feels sinful. It feels convenient, harmless, earned. It looks like scrolling to take the edge off, keeping noise on because silence feels too revealing. Checking your phone in the middle of work, in the middle of thought, in the middle of discomfort, in the middle of your own life. But distraction is not just broken focus. It is strategic avoidance. It is the refusal to remain still long enough to hear what your own mind has been trying to tell you. A lot of people think they are overwhelmed by life, when really they are chronically escaping themselves. The moment discomfort appears, they leave. Not physically, mentally, emotionally, digitally. They tell themselves they need a break, but what they really need is the strength to stay present under mild internal pressure. Look at the pattern. The conversation gets emotionally difficult, so they open another app. The task starts exposing their lack of discipline, so they seek stimulation. The evening becomes quiet, so the mind starts surfacing loneliness, regret, confusion, dissatisfaction. Then, instantly, music, videos, content, anything but contact with the self. Distraction has become an anesthetic, and like every anesthetic, it has a cost. The cost is not only wasted time, the cost is self-respect. Because some part of you is always watching. Some part of you sees the moment you abandon your own priorities to chase low-grade stimulation. Some part of you registers that when discomfort arrived, you did not hold your ground. You fled. Quietly, respectably, repeatedly. Then people wonder why they feel weak in moments that require depth. Because depth is built in silence. Clarity is built in stillness. Authority is built when you stop abandoning yourself every time your mind gets restless. The Stoics understood attention before neuroscience gave it updated language. What you repeatedly attend to, you strengthen. What you permit into the mind, you rehearse. What you rehearse, you become ready to feel. Emotional detachment begins with selective attention. That is law number 2. Your attention is your allegiance. Where it goes daily is where your character bends. If your attention belongs to outrage, comparison, gossip, fantasy, and digital noise, do not expect your soul to feel ordered. If your attention is easily bought, your peace will always be rented. And the justification people use here is almost always the same. This is just how life is now. No, this is how life becomes when discipline collapses. Modern chaos is real, but not all of it is unavoidable. Some of it is invited in, some of it is fed, some of it is checked every morning before your feet touch the floor. There is no emotional detachment without attentional discipline. Because what you call overthinking is often overexposure. What you call emotional sensitivity is often cognitive clutter. What you call being affected by everything is often the result of letting everything in. And once a person loses command of attention, the next betrayal becomes almost inevitable. The second form of self-betrayal is betrayal through performance. This one is quieter, more respectable, more socially rewarded. It is the habit of shaping your emotions around the eyes of others, not just lying to people, editing yourself for them, needing to be seen a certain way, needing to be understood on the first try, needing your restraint to be noticed, your pain to be validated, your intelligence to be confirmed, your silence to be interpreted correctly. Performance is emotional dependence dressed as maturity. A person says they are detached, but they are performing indifference to look strong. A person says they have standards, but they are really curating an image of superiority to hide insecurity. A person speaks carefully, not from wisdom, but from fear of disapproval. And the exhausting part is this: once your identity depends on outer reaction, you cannot rest. Because now every room becomes an evaluation, every conversation becomes a mirror, every delay becomes a possibility of rejection, every disagreement becomes an ego event. This is why some people are never at ease, even when nothing terrible is happening. They are constantly monitoring themselves through imagined witnesses. They are not living from within. They are being managed from outside. Marcus Aurelius warned himself against this, not in modern language, but with the same principle. He kept returning to the fact that reputation is vapor, applause decays. Public opinion is unstable, shallow, and quickly replaced. To build a life around it is to kneel before weather. That is law number 3. If your peace depends on being perceived correctly, you are still a servant. A servant of mood, a servant of approval, a servant of faces and reactions and private judgments you will never fully control. Emotional detachment means telling the truth in your conduct, then releasing the obsession with how it lands. It means choosing dignity over performance. It means letting people misunderstand you when explaining yourself further would be self-abandonment. It means no longer begging the world to certify what your character should already know. This does not make you arrogant. It makes you grounded. There is a kind of masculine self-respect that begins here. Not loud, not theatrical, not obsessed with domination, just stable. The kind that no longer spills itself trying to force validation out of people who do not have the depth to give it. And the price of failing here is severe. You lose direct contact with yourself. You become strategic in every room, adaptive in every conversation, emotionally filtered in every conflict. Eventually, you do not know whether your restraint is wisdom or fear, whether your kindness is virtue or submission, whether your ambition is purpose or appetite for recognition. When a person performs for too long, they lose access to their own center. And when that center is gone, the third betrayal takes over. The third form of self-betrayal is betrayal through emotional indulgence. Now, this one will offend people because the modern world flatters it constantly. It tells you that every emotion deserves expression, that every anger deserves release, that every hurt deserves narrative, that every resentment deserves to be revisited until it feels justified enough to become identity. But not every emotion deserves obedience. Some emotions deserve containment, some deserve scrutiny, some deserve to die unfed. To be clear, suppression is not strength, denial is not mastery, but indulgence is not honesty either. A man replays an insult for 3 days and calls it principle. A woman revisits a betrayal until the betrayal becomes the center of her personality and calls it healing. A person feeds envy, resentment, self-pity, and outrage, then says they are processing. No. Sometimes they are practicing bitterness, practicing grievance, practicing woundedness, until the wound becomes home. Seneca understood this with unusual sharpness. He knew that anger, especially, has a way of making people feel powerful while it steals judgment. It gives the illusion of moral force while weakening the very person carrying it. Anger often feels like energy, but much of the time it is just temporary possession. That is law number 4. What you rehearse emotionally becomes easier to feel. You are not only experiencing your inner life, you are training it. Every time you indulge resentment, you deepen the groove. Every time you romanticize sadness, you strengthen identification with it. Every time you turn pain into personality, you make recovery feel like self-erasure. This is why emotional detachment is not numbness, it is refusal. Refusal to make a throne out of a passing state. Refusal to decorate your chains. Refusal to build identity out of whatever hurt you last. And the justifications here are seductive because they sound noble. I just care deeply. I cannot help how I feel. I need to express myself. This is what they did to me. Maybe. But all of that can be true while still leaving one question untouched. What are you doing with it now? The Stoic does not deny injury. He denies injury the right to become command. This is law number 5. Pain is real. Possession is optional. You can be hurt without becoming ruled. You can be rejected without becoming reduced. You can be angry without becoming a weapon in the hand of your own impulse. And if that sounds severe, it is because the alternative has become normal. Look around. People are not merely feeling emotions, they are living under them. Entire years are lost to moods that were never questioned, stories that were never challenged, reactions that were treated as destiny. Then one day the consequences arrive. And this is the breaking point. It is rarely dramatic at first. There is no thunder, no cinematic collapse. Usually it begins with disgust. A sober, unglamorous disgust with your own repetitions. You notice that the same things keep injuring you, the same triggers keep owning you, the same distractions keep emptying you, the same people keep accessing parts of you they should no longer be able to reach. And the pain is no longer only about what happened to you. It becomes about what you keep permitting. That is the turning point. Not when life hurts you, when you finally see how often you have helped it do the job. You see the hours lost to mental arguments with absent people, the nights lost to fantasy, fear, comparison, regret, the energy handed to people who had already left, the dignity traded for one more explanation, one more outburst, one more craving, one more check of the phone, one more surrender disguised as harmless relief. And eventually something in you gets tired in the right way. Not tired enough to quit. Tired enough to stop lying. This is where many people meet themselves for the first time. Not the self they advertise, the self they obey, the self that panics when ignored. That meeting is not pleasant, but it is sacred, because nothing changes before truth becomes unbearable to avoid. And here is law number 6. Your life changes when your excuses start sounding embarrassing to you. Not to other people, to you. When you can no longer say, "That is just how I am," without feeling the cheapness of it. When you can no longer call your chaos depth. When you can no longer call your reactivity authenticity. When you can no longer keep blaming your circumstances for habits you keep rehearsing willingly. That is the beginning of power. Not external power, inner authority. The kind Stoicism has always been trying to build. So now the question changes. Not, how do I feel better? Not, how do I make them understand? not how do I avoid pain. The question becomes, how do I become the kind of person who cannot be easily governed by pain, praise, fear, or chaos? That is the rebuild, and it begins with the first act of restoration. Act 1. Command the mind. This is where most people want inspiration, but what they need is observation. Before you can govern the mind, you have to stop merging with everything that appears inside it. A thought arrives, and most people become it. A fear appears, and they obey it. A memory surfaces, and they relive it. An emotion rises, and they interpret reality through its temperature. The disciplined person does something different. He notices. He creates a fraction of distance between awareness and impulse. That distance is small, but it changes everything. Instead of "I am angry," it becomes "anger is present." Instead of "this is a disaster," it becomes "my mind is producing catastrophe." Instead of "I need to respond," now it becomes "urgency is being felt." That does not make it wise. This is not sterile language, it is self-command. Modern psychology sometimes calls this cognitive diffusion, metacognition, or response flexibility. The Stoics practiced it as moral survival. They knew that the unexamined impression becomes a tyrant, so they trained the pause. When you feel the surge, delay interpretation. When the insult lands, delay the story. When the fear appears, delay allegiance. Ask, what exactly happened? What am I adding? What assumption am I swallowing whole? What part of this is fact, and what part is ego? This is practical, extremely practical. Before opening the message that might upset you, steady your breathing. Before replying in anger, walk first. Before assuming rejection, look at the evidence. Before spiraling, write the raw thought down and examine it on paper. Not because journaling is trendy, because the page slows the lie. Marcus Aurelius wrote to catch himself in the act of distortion. His journal was not a brand, it was a battlefield report. He was constantly bringing the mind back under law. That is what command looks like. Not never feeling. Not pretending to be above human emotion. Seeing clearly enough that emotion does not seize the throne. So law number 7 is this. Your freedom begins where your impulses stop issuing orders. Read that again. Your freedom begins where your impulses stop issuing orders. If your moods decide your standards, you are not free. If your cravings decide your attention, you are not free. If your insecurity decides your speech, you are not free. Commanding the mind means recovering the right to choose your response. And at first, this feels slow, unnatural, unspectacular. Good, real mastery usually does. Then comes Act 2, govern the body. This is where philosophy either becomes visible or remains entertainment, because a disordered body invites a disordered mind. Sleep deprivation weakens judgment. Constant indulgence weakens restraint. Sedentary living thickens apathy. Chaotic routines produce chaotic inner states. A day with no structure becomes a field where impulse can graze freely. Many people want emotional stability while living in ways that biologically intensify instability. They eat without awareness, sleep without rhythm, work without seriousness, rest without intention, move too little, consume too much, and then ask why they feel foggy, volatile, and easily shaken. Because the body keeps score in plain sight. The Stoics were not obsessed with comfort. They understood something modern people keep forgetting. If you train yourself to need ease, you become fragile. If you never deny yourself anything, denial from life will destroy your composure. Govern the body then, not as punishment, but as alignment. Wake up when you said you would. Make your bed, if only to prove the day has begun under order. Train the body regularly. not for vanity first, but to build friction tolerance. Eat with enough discipline that appetite stops sounding like identity. Sleep with enough consistency that your nervous system is not dragged behind your ambitions like a broken cart. Work in defined blocks so your mind remembers what directed effort feels like. This is not macho theater, it is embodied philosophy. A person who cannot get out of bed on time should be careful speaking about higher purpose. A person who cannot sit with mild hunger, mild boredom, mild fatigue, mild discomfort should not be surprised when emotional storms feel unbeatable. The body is where principles become proof. Weak behavior here has a particular smell to it. It sounds like, "I will start when I feel better." It sounds like, "This small habit does not matter." It sounds like, "I deserve a break," said by someone whose whole life has become a break from themselves. Disciplined behavior sounds different. It says, "I do not negotiate with obvious necessities." It says, "My future deserves more than my present mood." It says, "If I want peace, I must stop living like a person preparing for chaos." Do not underestimate the dignity of ordinary order. A clean room, a completed workout, a phone placed away during work, a meal not ruled by compulsion, a night ended on time, promises kept in private. These things look small from the outside. Inside the soul, they are revolutionary, because every kept promise repairs something that self-betrayal broke. Then comes Act 3, withstand the world. This is where Stoicism proves whether it is real. It is easy to speak calmly in private, harder when insulted, harder when ignored, harder when plans collapse, harder when loneliness stretches, harder when the world does not reward your effort on schedule. But this is where your training is tested. Can you endure misunderstanding without self-erasure? Can you face uncertainty without becoming frantic? Can you experience rejection without collapsing into self-contempt? Can you be alone without turning loneliness into evidence that you are unworthy? Can you suffer delay without assuming life is denying you? This is where many people relapse into old emotional contracts. They say, "If the world treats me well, I will stay composed." That is not strength. That is dependency with nicer language. Stoic strength means carrying your center into unstable conditions, not because pain disappears, because principle remains. When someone insults you, you do not have to accept the invitation to descend. When someone leaves, you do not have to call your worth into question. When uncertainty rises, you do not have to poison the present with imagined futures. When pressure mounts, you do not have to become theatrical about your suffering. You breathe, you narrow the frame, you return to what is yours. What can I control in this hour? What duty remains? What interpretation is making this heavier? What response would still respect me tomorrow? That is how the unshakable are built. Not in perfect conditions, in repeated contact with imperfect ones. And, let us be precise, emotional detachment does not mean never loving, never caring, never grieving. The detached person may love more cleanly than anyone else because he is not trying to possess what he loves. He is not turning care into control. He is not making attachment a hostage situation for the soul. He can value deeply and still remain standing when life refuses his preferences. That is rare strength. To care without clinging, to feel without drowning, to lose without disintegrating, to continue without becoming cold. This is the standard the Stoics point toward, not emotional poverty, emotional sovereignty. And once a person begins living this way, certain things become unacceptable. This is the new standard. What becomes unacceptable now? Wasting whole days in reactivity, calling indulgence healing, calling distraction rest, calling explanation dignity, calling emotional leakage authenticity, calling passivity peace, calling resentment depth, calling approval love, calling self-abandonment kindness. No, not anymore. The new standard says, if it weakens my command, I question it. If it steals my attention, I confront it. If it turns me against my own values, I cut it off. If it makes me smaller in my own eyes, it costs too much. This path builds a person with inner weight, a person who does not need to announce boundaries because his conduct carries them, a person who does not beg to be chosen because he has chosen his own standard, a person who can enter noise without becoming noisy, a person who can be alone without becoming desperate, a person who can be criticized without becoming derailed, a person who can succeed without becoming arrogant and suffer without becoming theatrical. Inner authority looks ordinary from the outside. That is what fools miss. It looks like not checking the phone every 30 seconds. It looks like finishing what you said you would finish. It looks like speaking less carefully for approval and more carefully for truth. It looks like leaving what degrades you without needing a dramatic speech. It looks like no longer explaining your self-respect to people who profit from your lack of it. It looks like a calm face in a heated room. It looks like a quiet schedule that protects your mind. It looks like refusing to turn every feeling into a public event. It looks like maturity, not the fake maturity of polished language, the real thing. The kind you can feel in someone before they speak. There is a line people cross when they stop negotiating with weakness. After that, they may still stumble, still hurt, still feel anger, grief, fear, longing. But they cannot go back to worshipping those states. They cannot go back to building identity out of instability. They have seen too clearly what it costs. And if you stay on this path, something changes that no one can give you from the outside. You stop needing life to be easier in order to be stronger. That is the shift. You stop asking for fewer triggers and start building deeper command. You stop asking to be understood by everyone and start becoming understandable to yourself. You stop romanticizing your chaos. You stop introducing yourself to your own mind as a victim. You stop kneeling before mood. And then a strange peace appears. Not a soft peace, not a lazy peace, a stern peace, a clean one. The kind that comes from knowing that while life is still uncertain, you are no longer available to every disturbance. You still feel. You simply do not surrender so quickly. So if you have been waiting for a sign that it is time to become harder to provoke, harder to tempt, harder to emotionally manipulate, let this be it. Not so you can become cold. So you can become clear. Not so you can love less. So you can love without losing rank within yourself. Not so you can avoid pain. So pain stops turning you into someone you do not respect. This is the oath. I will not let impulse speak for my character. I will not let distraction eat the hours my life is made of. I will not turn my wounds into identity. I will not ask the world for permission to stand upright. I will feel what is real, examine what is false, and obey only what is worthy. I will build a mind that pauses, a body that obeys, and a spirit that does not beg circumstance for peace. I will stop negotiating with habits that make me contemptible in my own eyes. I will stop calling weakness by beautiful names. I will stop handing strangers, screens, memories, and moods the authority to govern my inner life. Because being unshakable is not a talent. It is a vow kept under pressure. If this resonated, like the video, and in the comments, write the line or insight that hit you hardest. Subscribe for grounded Stoic philosophy and self-mastery content built for people who are done performing strength and ready to practice it. And when you leave this video, do not just admire the truth, enforce it. Because the moment you stop bargaining with your weakness is the moment your life stops belonging to it.